And this is where it's 2 minutes to the first person, and then 30 seconds for each other candidate to respond to the question. So since we started here, we'll start over here. The board, and then David, and then Stan, and then Jesse. We'll go in reverse order this time. Question number 1, you get 2 minutes. I suggest staying in the seats because it's only 2 minutes.
We stand up.
If you want to stand, sure.
If they can't all see us very much.
Absolutely. Standing would be appropriate, but I'm staying at the table. All right. What is the best thing Congress could do to reverse the economic slide?
They have to stop the bailouts to favored industries, number one. That is a complete derogation of their duties as our congressmen to pick the winners and losers. That type of modern fascism has to stop. That's what's been killing us. Where the legislatures, the Congress, have essentially doled out our wealth to insiders. It goes beyond Congress, though. It goes to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is just as corrupt as Congress has allowed itself to become. They pick the winners and losers, too.
Doug, hold the mic closer.
Okay. The Federal Reserve is also infected with corruption. Imagine if you could, if you knew which way interest rates were going to go before that announcement was made, what would you do? You would act on it, and we know that that's what they're doing. We had a recent incident, it was in a different country, but it's illustrative, where the wife of the head of the Swedish Central Bank, or Swiss Central Bank, front ran the news that the Swiss franc was no longer going to be the strong currency it once was. So she bought dollars on inside information. We know that Congress has the ability to trade on inside information, and they do. We know that people are rewarded for their association with the politically powerful by being placed in cream puff jobs like the head of the Fannie Mae, where the famous Franklin Raines took out $150 million of our money right before they crashed. That's what's killing us. Favoritism to the politically well-connected at all levels of the federal government.
Thank you very much, David.
Just to stay within the 30 seconds, I'd say we should do the thing that's worked. If we look in the history of our nation, in the 20th century, there was only one time where government actually did something that stopped a depression or a recession quickly, and that was in 1920. 1920, they cut taxes 50%. They cut spending, actual spending cuts, 50%. It was the worst depression because it was the most severe depression. The Great Depression was called the Great Depression because it lasted the longest, thanks to all the interference from FDR.
Thank you very much.
I think the best thing Congress can do right now, number one, is cut its spending. You know, when you're looking at a budget of $3.4 trillion and you've got a deficit of $1.6 trillion at the end of the year, we're borrowing $40 for every 100 that we spend. That just drives us further and further into the hole. We need to start looking at how we cut entitlement spending, and Congress needs to start doing the job people elected them to do. That's what we really need to focus on. And we need to facilitate businesses for jobs, not government creating jobs. And if we do those things, we can get this back on balance. Thank you.
Mr. Young.
Two things. Cut spending, number one, and number two, deregulate. Those are the top two priorities that you have to get. The third thing I'm going to add to that is you have to be able to frame that conversation in a way that you can win it in 30-second sound bites. Otherwise, you're never going to get a fiscal conservative elected, which is why when you see in my materials, you see that those two ideas are espoused first in fiscal responsibility and then second, jobs through the free market. Because if you frame it right, you can win the debate. And we know the Democrats only want to talk in 30-second sound bites. That's out.
Thank you. Question number two. Well, everybody's going to get twice to begin, obviously, the same question. So we'll start here and go this way, just straight across, make it easy. Mr. Fleming will begin first. Are there any sections of Obama's health care reform that you would keep?
No. I used my time. The Obamacare plan is not about health care reform, it's not about access, it's about denying Americans access to health care, and it will cost us more money. We will drive small businesses out of business. There's no question, this plan is bad from start to finish. What we need to do is look at redoing a health care plan that truly addresses the American needs, and that's access. We don't need more money, we need to redistribute the dollars that we currently have in our health care system. We are number 2 in the world for the amount of money we spend on healthcare, number 38 in the world in how we deliver it. It's getting the dollars down to the healthcare providers who deliver the care and not sinking it into administrative costs and not sinking it into additional procedures that we, doctors and other providers get paid for. And so we're not spending the time with the patients. How many patients go and see their providers and spend more than 5 to 10 minutes? You know, we need to get back to doing that reimbursed for the time that physicians and other healthcare providers spend. And that's what I would start from scratch, erase the slate as we have it now, and start over.
Well, my answer is no as well. There's no reason to allow the government to continue to ruin the healthcare industry, which they have for about 40 years now. That's really what the problem is. Wherever government takes over an industry, the industry goes eventually down, and it happens in every country. And anybody that's read Animal House knows what else comes with that. The insiders get the best care, the rest of us get rationing. And that's exactly what's going to happen if we don't repeal Obamacare.
I will also use the short 30-second response, which is no. It's really a states' rights issue. If a state wants to destroy itself with socialized medicine, that's a state's right. Right? If they don't have to. The beauty of federalism is states can try things, and when they mess up, you can say, oh, I don't want to do that again. And if they do well, other states learn from it.
No, I do not we'll work hard to get it out. I'll tell you, the solution to our healthcare problem is, if you note, there are 2 people that have experience in the healthcare industry. One of the problems with Obamacare was there are not enough people in Congress that have actually worked in that field. 2 things that you can do to address it. If you address tort reform or lawsuit reform so you don't win the lottery by tripping over a cord in a hallway, you'll drop the cost of healthcare overnight. And if you let the healthcare providers go after fraud in the industry, overnight you're going to see the costs of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security drop.
I'll just give you a prediction. The Supreme Court's already voted, in my opinion, 5-4 to get rid of Obamacare. And the premise that they're going to get rid of the whole thing on is that they're going to get rid of one section on the requirement to mandate to buy insurance from a private health insurance company. They're going to say that's unconstitutional. And they're also going to say that since that's unconstitutional, the other sections would never have passed because that's what would pay for the other sections. So they're going to vote the whole thing down. If they've already, in my opinion, voted it down, you'll hear about it in June. All right, question number 3, and we'll start at this end and go that way. Are there any, would you eliminate any federal departments? And if so, which ones? We need a long sheet of paper here.
How about the National Labor Relations Board? You know, the key here, you have to strategically go after it so that you can strategically focus on the things that will allow the free market to grow the quickest so we get these jobs back. But more importantly, start to target people that will allow us to bring back jobs in the 21st century so that we can keep our technological advantage over China and India. So what I would say is we need to get rid of the EPA and replace it with the Environmental Solutions Agency. That's what Jim Ingers talked about, but there's a key there. You have to frame it in a way that you can get it to pass. The EPA right now is stopping a private investor from completely developing a terminal in the 6th district. They want to do it to the tune of $50 million, so we don't need a taxpayer subsidy to do it. They're cutting the ability of that private investor to export, which will send goods out of our district and bring back foreign dollars to turn around our economy. So you got to hit the EPA up. The next thing is I would vote immediately to transition away from the Department of Education. It's proven not to work. What we need, and some of the candidates have already talked about this, now as a federal candidate, candidate, I would vote to remove or to transition away and give that control back to the people. But then, as a parent, I would advocate parental choice. Let the money follow the kids so that the parents can see we could go down the list. What would be another one? Well, I would say we come back and anything that's regulating and serving to give the Federal Reserve any amount of power, we need to pull back. The Federal Reserve is causing bubbles in the market that is absolutely making it incredibly hard on our businesses to succeed. So we go out to the Federal Reserve next. Thank you very much.
Actually, I have to correct you, Jesse. The Federal Reserve is a private entity. It actually isn't a department.
I didn't say the Federal Reserve, I said things that are supporting the Federal Reserve.
Ah, okay. I would cut energy out. I would put that back to the states. I'd let Alaska decide if they want to drill. Let them. Other states want to follow them. Let them. Energy, education. My wife's a school teacher. She understands the federal government is like the mafia. It takes 10% and sends it back, and then you have to do what they tell you. Interior. Let the states run the forests and the parks. I got a lot more.
Well, I think the obvious department to be discontinued would be education, obviously. And I say that because the Department of Education has done nothing to improve our educational system at all. So that one's obvious. The other one that's obvious is the Energy Department. That has to go because obviously they've done nothing good except muck things up. Those are the two easiest ones to get rid of, and those are the ones I would suggest.
You did going last? Just saying you don't do it. No. Number one, like I said in my opening remarks, is the Department of Education. We spend $4.7 billion on an institution that has a little over 3,000 employees who does very little for promoting the betterment of education. I would say that's number one. Number two would be the EPA, because it's totally the lifeblood out of our businesses. The more we try to come in compliance, the higher the standards go, and puts it further out of reach. It's more costly to America, and we're losing businesses because of that.
That's it. Thank
Number three is the IRS.
IRS, Internal Revenue Secret Service. Question number 4. We'll start with Mr. Eidner this time. And we'll go that way and then back over here. All right, you get 2 minutes. Wow. The question: has no child left behind help or hurt education? And what should the relationship be between the federal government and the states on education?
You picked this one just for me, didn't you? You knew my wife was a school teacher. I have to actually say there are some good things about No Child Left Behind. And I say that because we had children in the Tacoma School District, and we were initially placed to a school that was a failing school. And we, because of No Child Left Behind, were given the right to say, we want our kid to go to a school that's not failing. We'll drive them there, we'll take them there every morning, but we want our kids to have a chance to go to a school that's decent enough for them to get a good education. And not a school that was failing year after year after year after year after year. So from that perspective, I think parents were enabled and were empowered by No Child Left Behind. Unfortunately, like I tell my family a lot, there's always a good and a bad side of things. The bad side outweighed the good. The bad side allowed the federal government to dictate more and more at a state level and a local level what teachers have to teach and how they have to teach. And unfortunately, we have a philosophy in education today that is different than the rest of the world, that's a leftover from the 60s. And this philosophy is why our kids can't read and write when they get out of the public educational system. Unless you have some outstanding teachers that kind of go against the current, and when I say philosophy of that learning, it's this philosophy that kids will just learn intuitively. That teachers don't have to really teach. They can just let the kids figure it out on their own and read the paper. My wife watched teachers in school classrooms reading the paper while kids were essentially going crazy in the classroom. That needs to change. And it can only change at a state and local level because the federal government has no interest in changing that. They like people to beat down, frankly. They're easier to control.
Well, I don't think that there's anything particularly worthwhile in the No Child Left Behind Act, other than a few minor things. But the overriding problem is, one size fits all is not an efficient way of promoting improvements in education. You need competition. You need charter schools. You need vouchers. The Department of Education, No Child Left Behind, is not going to encourage that type of competition that we need. And so therefore, I say no, again, we need to get the federal government out of education.
Certainly the losses outweigh the gains in terms of what the program No Child Left Behind means, what it stands for. My wife is a principal in an elementary school, has been a principal in middle school, has told me repeatedly the challenges they face as administrators is that one size fits all, and it doesn't. There's children who learn at greater rates and slower rates and have special needs, and we need to tailor our education to meet those needs. We need to set our standards for our kids and not accept the federal dictates that don't work at the local level.
Thank you very much.
As a businessman, I love the principle of measurables. Measurables always help you achieve the success faster, but at the end of the day, you just have to look at a basis point. This is a state's issue. Any top-down driven approach to education is the wrong approach, period.
You were saying state 4 times not to do that.
Okay. Everybody's had a turn to go first, so we'll start here and go down that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, so you get one more question before the break. Question. Are there any new amendments to the United States Constitution that you would support?
The first one I would support is defining that life starts at conception.
Yes.
See, I would vote to repeal the 16th Amendment, get rid of the IRS. We need to go back to what the Founding Fathers had originally designed there. Now, I'm a big proponent of coupling that with going to the fair tax. If you do that overnight, you're going to see the ability for the United States, or businesses in the United States, to compete again on a global scale. And it's very important to go back to that. If you look at the Founding Fathers' intent, we were not to have an income tax. So I would vote to put that back in. The 17th Amendment with regard to the way senators are elected, I think needs to be addressed. It was never meant to be elected by the people. It was elected to be elected by the state legislatures or a state body to represent the states. And that's one of the reasons why we're up here talking right now about the fact that so many of these bills are states' rights, because you have nobody, as the Founding Fathers designed, to argue on behalf of the state. And as a result, states' rights are being trampled, and as a result, our kids are getting poorly educated. I would also propose or support, I'm very conservative, faith is a big part of my life. I would support defining marriages between one man and one woman. I can start with those. I mean, the truth is, one of the things I loved about watching Rick Santorum, despite all the negative media and what they want to do, is he was willing to stand up and defend in a very unequivocal way how these things would bless this nation. The truth is, we are one nation under God, and if we stand on our faith, this nation will again rise again. Thank you.
For me, it would have to be the balanced budget amendment. I truly think that we are approaching a cliff. We have years, not decades, to be able to stop the car before we go off that cliff. I didn't have a chance to talk a little bit more about it earlier, but this is my opportunity, so I'll seize it. Oh, I only have 30 seconds, that's right, okay, well. Just to say that the balanced budget amendment is the only thing that's going to give us that structure so that we can keep Congress accountable to the people and stop spending.
Thank you very much.
I would vote to repeal the 16th Amendment. Yes, it's presently constituted. I would be willing to accept a flat tax, but progressive tax is a instrument of mischief in our Congress's minds, and I think that we need to stop that. So that's my take on that.
Well, the question is not so much what we would we repeal, but what would we add as an amendment? And I have to concur that the use of a balanced budget amendment is critical to the United States. It's perhaps one of the greatest threats that we face today. And without that, we are headed to the precipice. The federal government is the only government right now at the federal state level that does not require a balanced budget, but allows it to continue to spend without any type of constraints. That's dangerous for the United States today. It's dangerous for us as Americans as we go forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How about a customs amendment, we pay the members of Congress $1 a year until they balance the budget? Okay, are we ready? Do you believe the National Defense Authorization Act allows for indefinite detention? And would you repeal the section in question?
Videotaping again?
Yes.
You want to pick up your stuff?
That's the short answer. Yeah, this is a law that was passed and with good intentions sometimes, but you don't know who's going to be enforcing that law 4 years from now.
It says no videotaping. This is
And
private.
the right to take somebody, a citizen, you, me,
Police, I can do that.
out and with no trial, with no jury, no judge, put someone in prison and hold them indefinitely is un-American. That's fascism. That's not what we're about. We're about the rights of the individual, regardless of what the majority is afraid of. That's what Republicans stand for. That's what we have to be about. That's what the Constitution is about. Individual liberties are protected in a republic from tyranny by the majority. If it's not, then we're no better than Nazi Germany. So we have to think long and hard before we start allowing military indefinite detentions of you, me, anybody that speaks up at a political meeting against the government, anybody that offends the emperor. Think about it. It's a slippery slope. We cannot go down that slippery slope. We don't want our children to live in a totalitarian society. We want them to be able to worship their God freely.
Police will be here.
Not like in China, where they have to worry about the government coming in, grabbing them, and throwing them into
Do you
jail.
live locally? That's what I figured.
Our God is a God of freedom. He wants us to serve Him voluntarily and in freedom. That's why He freed us.
He's a Democrat.
Well, my understanding and reading of the National Defense Authorization Act is that it does allow for indefinite
Yeah, he's videotaping
detention
what
of
the
American
speakers are saying.
citizens without trial. And my
He's a
reading of the
spy.
Constitution is that it doesn't. And so therefore, that's the simple answer. We have an unconstitutional law that's been enacted by a renegade Congress and people who have no real allegiance or conception of the Constitution. Well, Americans have been dying and fighting for our freedoms since 1775, and those are freedoms that they believed in. It's what makes America a great nation that it is. No, this law does tread on our inalienable rights as Americans. It goes against our Constitution. It's the camel's nose under the tent. And if we allow this to take place, then what's next for the Americans if we continue to have our rights stripped away from us? We need to draw the line in the sand and say, no, enough is enough. Thank you.
It is unconstitutional, and I would vote to repeal it. You know, on my signs, I have the phrase Constitution first. And this is a prime example of why I have it on there, because typically, when you get back to Congress, you know that there's going to be backdoor dealing that goes on. You're getting good with the bill, you're getting bad with the bill, but at the end of the day, you always have to come back to the principle. And if the bill that comes to the bill violates that principle, Constitution first, then I will always vote.
You need to.
Mr. Cloud,
Right.
should we change, 2 minutes, should we change our policy on foreign aid, and what should it be?
Well,
Well, I think our policy on foreign aid should be, it doesn't exist unless we have a balanced budget, number one. I mean, why is it legal? I guess we've all maybe traveled on a credit card before, but should our money do that? I don't know. So that's number one. I do think we need to scale back our involvement in overseas affairs, period. We need to scale back our contribution to the United Nations as well. And we need, frankly, to focus in on our economy in our country, period. And then let the other countries worry about themselves. Use us as an example. They will change their ways eventually if we are showing them the way. But unfortunately, they seem to be showing us the way down the toilet. And that's what's happened. You know, it just makes no sense. It's like giving your money away from a household to support the neighbor while your kids are starving. It's nonsense. And it's nothing that I would support. And I also have to say that we do have to consider scaling back to some extent some of the other commitments we have overseas. Period. We need to focus on our economy, our country, and our people. And if we do that, we will lead the world to a better place.
Well, we certainly can't continue to spend money that we don't have. Certainly spending back on foreign aid is a major consideration for us at the national level. One exception I'd make to that is for the nation of Israel. Freedom out in the Middle East. Certainly, our focus needs to be on ensuring our national security first, taking care of American safety, security, and well-being, getting people back to work in the United States, and lastly, getting us out of the UN.
You should start every nation at zero and force them to justify the need for that aid every year. And start to do it in a public forum so that the United States people and our citizens can actually see the pros and cons that go into that, to force our politicians to actually make a stance for fiscal responsibility. If you start there first, then you give yourself the freedom to support the nation of Israel. And at the same time, pull back funds that are obviously going to support terrorism. And that's what you should do every year. Start at zero and force them to justify.
It's unconscionable when we spend so much money and we borrow 40% of every dollar to give hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign aid each year. When we help other countries with foreign aid and we send and transfer our dollars overseas, we're allowing them to compete better with us and steal our jobs. We have to stop sending our money overseas now, before we die.
Thank you. Okay, I'll mention it now because I don't want to forget it later. The people organizing the meeting this evening asked that each person consider donating $5 a person to pay for the cost of the room. As you can see, it's very crowded. It's a big room. These candidates are here, and I have no shame. As long as it's not for me, I'm perfectly willing to ask for money for other people. So if you wouldn't mind coughing up $5 a piece, at least. The people organizing would appreciate this to help people. All right. Fiscal responsibility. Last question of this section. Then we go to the quick yes/no round. All right, Mr. Fleming. If elected, what committees would you like to serve on, and why? And there will be a Republican majority in the House, so you'll get some choices here.
No, when elected, the committees that I would most want to serve on are the following. Number one is Armed Services. Again, as I said in my opening remarks, as a senior ranking person in Congress, that would give me an automatic seat there. That would allow me to protect the interest that we have in our installations and in the 100,000 plus Americans who work at those installations every day. Allow us to look out for the folks here in our communities. Number two, I'd like to serve on healthcare, because as I've said repeatedly throughout my campaign and tonight, getting rid of Obamacare is job one on that committee, and I am committed 100% to doing that. Number three would be in education, because of the things we have talked about tonight that are pertinent of getting the government out of its regulatory business and getting those dollars back to our communities where they belong. With the experience that I have in each one of those areas, It gives me credibility at the table to have to negotiate those and have those important discussions. And so those are things that I consider important. Lastly, I would want to serve on labor, because as at the county council, I've demonstrated repeatedly that stimulating the economy by facilitating opportunities for small businesses to get jobs going, get people retrained, retooled back to work is what's going to get us out of the recession. Right now, we have no national strategic plan or state strategic plan to get us out of the recession. I've been working on that plan locally at the council, and we have completed that. We're enacting that, and that is part of our economic recovery. Those are the 3 areas or 4 areas that I have the greatest expertise. Those are the areas where I can make the greatest contribution to our nation, but in turn make the greatest contribution to our community, to this district, and to our state.
Well, I think the most powerful committees are appropriations and ways and means, and so of course I'd like to go where power is. I think that would serve our district the best. The other 2 committees I'd be particularly interested in are the Judiciary Committee, because of my expertise in the law, and I know how judges are, and I know how to take them apart, and I'd love to do that, some of the nominees. And then finally, the Finance Committee, because of my expertise in finance and matters of economics.
Well, my background in the Navy, and particularly since our facilities in the 6th District, our naval facilities have such an impact on our local economies, I want to be on the Armed Services Committee to be able to do everything I could for this district. Failing that, I would be interested in the Judiciary Committee as well, simply because I have a strong interest in constitutional behavior by our government, and getting judges who actually will remember the original intent of our Constitution would be my main focus.
In this order, appropriations, armed services, and ways and means. With regard to appropriations, I would seek to get on the same subcommittee, the defensive subcommittee that Congressman Dix is on now, to continue the support to our naval facilities in the 6th District. With regards to armed services and ways and means, I would like to leverage my technology experience, because having consulted globally in areas of technology, I understand the threats that are coming against the United States in terms of both business and both in terms of our military, and would like to be able to provide that perspective.
All very intelligent responses, and I've got to share one quick one. Senator Patrick Lane, of course, a Democrat from Vermont, was asked by a media organization, what's your constitutional authority at the Senate Judiciary Committee, that they've been talking about judiciary, for mandating that people buy health insurance. And the description was, he sat back indignant. The United States Senate has the authority to do what it chooses to do. He couldn't even answer the question as to what the constitutional authority was. Neither could Senator Feinstein, and neither could Denny Hoyer, the guy who's the House Majority Whip for the Democrats. They couldn't answer the question articulately about anything in the Constitution of the United States. Any one of these candidates has more capacity to answer the question and understand the Constitution than those 3 sitting United States Senators of the Democratic Party. What do you make of that? All right, we come to our, don't forget, oh, by the way, there's a red bucket. And this is a red state, right? So, the red bucket is where you drop your money. Incidentally, I don't know if he wants to say anything, but the man who creates the Senator Carroll is in the back of the room. A gentleman and a distinguished statesman, Senator Mike Carroll. All right, this is the lightning round. You have a yes and you have a no. And I'm going to ask you a question, but I'm going to give you a few seconds to have to hold it up. I want the people here to see your view on the issue. So don't just hold it up and drop it down. We want people to know where you stand. Question number 1. Should Dodd-Frank federal regulations be repealed? Should the Federal Reserve be subjected to a full audit? Thank you. Would you vote to continue the earmark ban in the House of Representatives? Thank you. Should Should the United States completely withdraw from the United Nations? Would you vote to repeal Obama's health care law? Thank you. Do you support the expanded use of drones in American airspace? Thank you all very much. Would you vote to require employers to use E-Verify to verify the Social Security number of their employees? E-Verify. Thank you. Do you believe marriage should be defined as only between one man and one woman? Thank you. Would you vote to defend Planned Parenthood? Would you vote to defund Planned Parenthood? If in Congress today, when you would vote to extend the debt limit, would you extend the debt limit? Thank you all. Would you vote to make the Republican Bush-era tax cuts permanent? Okay. Actually, I'll ask you one. Would you vote to get rid of the death tax? They've already paid the taxes on the money. Now the kids have to pay it again? Would you vote to authorize a fence to be built along our southern border?
A fence can keep you in just as much as it can keep people out.
Okay. One sentence. Anybody else want to have one sentence on that subject? One sentence only.
This is a national security issue, we must take it seriously. Maybe if we didn't pay them to be here, they wouldn't come over, or we wouldn't need a fence Israel has.
They don't get mommies for the fences over there. That's true. All right. Would you vote to stop bestowing citizenship on babies born to illegal immigrants, commonly known as anchor babies? By the way, if you read the debate about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments after the Civil War, they specifically talked about this was not intended for people to come over here and have babies. That whole subject was discussed. The Senate Majority Leader in Arizona, when he proposed passing a law on that subject, talked about that research that they had done. It wasn't intended to have that happen. It wasn't intended that meant the Constitution did not intend that at all. All right.
That's never stopped the judge.
That's never stopped the judge, right? Okay. Final question. Did you support the removal of, would you support the removal, or did you support the removal of the Elwha Dam? Removal of the Elwha Dam. Okay, unanimous agreement on that one. All right, that ends the lightning round. Don't forget the $5, please. And again, by the way, are there any military people in the room? Raise your hand. Would everybody go around and applause? Thank you for your service. Thank you very much for your service. God bless you. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to come back, and we're going to go with the questions on the 3x5 cards. People are going to have those, and the group.